The afternoon when everything changed felt like any other. Clear sky, dry heat, the smell of grilled meat, onions sizzling, and corn tortillas warming on the griddle. It was Sunday, and like every month, the Carter family was hosting their traditional backyard barbecue at Emily's parents' place in Maple Creek. For them, it was a sacred ritual. For me, it was an obligation. I never quite fit in at those gatherings, but I always showed up. Out of respect, out of habit. For Emily, even though I knew her family barely tolerated me, I was there, clean shirt, practice smile. Because that's what you're supposed to do, right? You adapt. You endure. That day, I arrived late. Work had held me up. Closing out a project for a neighborhood redesign had taken longer than expected. But I wasn't worried. It's just a family barbecue, I told myself. Nobody's keeping score. But something was off the moment I stepped through the back gate. Everything looked exactly as it should have. The long wooden table under the pergola, the floral tablecloths, the ice-cold beers, the laughter echoing over the crackle of old ranchera songs playing from a dusty speaker. Everyone was in place. Everything was in place. Except me. There was one empty chair. In the corner, far from the grill. No plate. No glass. No utensils. Like they weren't expecting me. Or worse, like it didn't matter whether I showed up or not. Emily stood next to her father, laughing as he flipped steaks. She saw me, didn't wave, didn't smile, just turned her head slightly and said, loud enough for everyone, "I thought we were all here already." Laughter. Her cousin snorted. Her sister said, "Oops." No one moved. No one said, "Sit here." No one even acknowledged me. I stood frozen. The sun hit me straight in the face. I could hear their voices, the clatter of cutlery, the jokes, but it all felt distant, like I was behind glass. I almost did what I always did, pretended it didn't matter. Found a chair, smiled, played along. But something inside me snapped. I checked the time. 3:47 p.m. I stared at the numbers like they meant something. Took a breath, forced a smile, said, loud and clear, "Guess I'm not on the guest list anymore." More laughter. A few glanced over. Most didn't. Emily barely looked. I turned around and walked out the way I came. No rush. No drama. The sound of gravel crunching under my shoes was the only noise as I left. No, wait. No, come sit. Nothing. 35 minutes later, I was driving aimlessly through the grid-straight streets of Maple Creek when the first message arrived. "Where are you?" I didn't answer. Then another. It was just a joke. Don't be so sensitive. A joke. Like all the others. Like when her mom said Emily could have married up. Like when her sister laughed about me being just a community architect. Like when Emily herself called me a dreamer, not a provider. 7 years of jokes. 7 years of swallowing my pride. Justifying everything. Convincing myself it was normal. But that empty chair wasn't a joke. It was a message. And the worst part? It didn't even hurt anymore. I just felt hollow. I passed through neighborhoods where kids ran barefoot and signs were hand-painted in shop windows. Life looked more honest out there than anything in the Carter house. And somewhere on that drive, I realized they hadn't just left me out of a meal. They'd been slowly erasing me from their lives. And maybe Emily had too. I kept driving. Past the community center where I just finished drafting designs for a public garden. Past the strip mall with the bakery Emily used to like. Past the gas station I'd already passed twice. No music. No distractions. I didn't want anything to pull me away from my thoughts. For the first time in a long time, they were starting to come through loud and clear. Images from the barbecue kept looping in my mind. The laughter, the side glances, the silence when I walked away. But the part that hurt most wasn't the chair or the joke. It was her indifference. Emily saw me walk in. She saw me walk out. And she didn't move. She didn't follow. She didn't care. That's what tore into me. Because you don't expect everyone to stand up for you. But you expect the person you share a life with to do it. And Emily, she just let me go. As I turned onto a quieter road lined with palm trees and crooked mailboxes, other moments began resurfacing. Moments that hadn't meant much at the time, but now took on a different weight. Like last Thursday, Emily came home late, close to 11. Said she'd gone out with coworkers after a training. I didn't press her. Just asked if she had fun. She shrugged and said sort of, then disappeared into the shower. Or a couple weeks before that, she was getting ready for a girls' night and wore a dress I'd never seen before. Something elegant, something new. I asked if they were going somewhere fancy. She said no, just wanted to look good for herself. I believed her. Or chose to. Then there were the little things, the phone she no longer left on the table, the soft chuckles while reading texts, the way she now slept with her phone tucked under the pillow. When had it all started changing, and how had I missed it? The thought turned my stomach. It wasn't just the barbecue. It was a string of signs I hadn't wanted to see. Or maybe I'd seen them and just ignored them. Because it's easier to pretend things are fine when the alternative is everything falling apart. I pulled onto a dead-end street and parked between two modest houses. The palms overhead rustled in the warm breeze, casting long shadows over my windshield. I turned off the engine, sat there, hands still on the wheel. That's when the question hit me like a punch to the chest. What if Emily wasn't just distant? What if there was someone else? The idea felt like poison. I hated myself for even thinking it, but I couldn't unthink it, not after everything I'd pieced together in the past hour. I checked my phone. Still just the 2 messages from her. No missed calls. No follow-up. That said more than any words could. I took a breath and opened the mobile account app. I handled all the billing. Emily always said she hated dealing with boring stuff, which meant if there was anything suspicious, I'd find it here. I scrolled through the call logs, the text records. My hands started to shake, and then I saw it. A number. Repeated. Dozens of times over the past few weeks. Messages. Calls. Even FaceTime. It wasn't mine. Wasn't her mom's. Not her sister's. Not any of her friends I knew. But Emily knew it, and she'd been calling it almost every night. A chill ran through me. My throat tightened. I copied the number into a reverse lookup service. Watched the page load. Ad popped up. Then buffering. Then the name. Derek Vaughn. Didn't ring a bell. But something about it sent a jolt through me. It sounded expensive, polished, corporate. The kind of name that wore tailored suits and drove a leased BMW. The kind of man Emily used to half-joke was her type. I clicked through to LinkedIn. He had a profile. Of course he did. Derek Vaughn, senior consultant at a private wealth firm in downtown San Francisco. Broad smile. Clean cut. Confident. Everything about his photo screamed success. My gut clenched. I flipped back to the call records. Just the night before, they'd exchanged 2 texts. Tuesday, 17-minute FaceTime. Saturday, 3 calls. The last one at 10:43 p.m. She told me she had a headache and was going to sleep early. I closed the app, stared at my own reflection in the window. I didn't recognize the man looking back. Tired eyes. Jaw clenched. Shoulders tense. I remembered a few weeks ago when she came home wearing a perfume I didn't know. I asked her about it. It's from a coworker, she said. Got stuck on me when she hugged me goodbye. I told her it didn't matter. But it did. It all did. And now, the pieces were falling into place. It wasn't just distance. It was detachment. It was disdain. And maybe it was betrayal. I wasn't sure yet, but I was going to find out. I didn't drive home. Instead, I found a quiet cafe on the edge of town. The kind of place with second-hand furniture, local art on the walls, and a chalkboard menu that hadn't changed in years. I ordered a black coffee, found a table near the back, and opened my laptop. I wasn't in denial anymore. I needed answers. Real ones. From the laptop, I logged into our shared phone account, not just the app, but the full dashboard. The backend had more detail. Location pings. Timestamps. Full records. I scrolled. Clicked. Zoomed in. There it was. In the last 3 weeks alone, Emily had exchanged more messages with Derek Vaughn than she had with me in the past 6 months. And not just work-hour pings or one-liners. These were long, emoji-laced texts. Messages at strange hours. Midnight, 7 a.m., Sunday afternoons. The kind of messages you don't send to someone you barely know. My stomach twisted tighter with each page I opened. Then I saw it. A location tag, auto-ping from her device during a message sent on a Tuesday night. The Franklin Hotel. I copied the address. Dropped it into Google Maps. Right in the middle of Prescott Square, San Francisco's upscale business district. Boutique hotel. Luxury rooms. Spa packages. The kind of place you go to feel important. The same Tuesday, she told me she had to stay late at the office. I sat back. Let it sink in. She had lied. Blatantly. I remembered that night. I'd even offered to bring her dinner, and she told me not to worry. Said she'd probably just grab something quick and crash. I believed her. I wished her good night. While she was, where? In that hotel room? With him? The coffee in front of me had gone cold. I didn't move. I didn't sip it. I just stared at the screen while something inside me went perfectly still. This wasn't a suspicion anymore. It was a truth. She was cheating on me. Not just emotionally. Not just texting. She was meeting him. Seeing him. Sharing spaces I wasn't invited into. Living a life parallel to mine. One I'd never been meant to see. I opened the message logs again. Scanned for any pattern. It was all there. The gradual build-up. The frequency spike. The late-night contacts. And worst of all, the tone. Flirty, familiar, intimate. Then I saw something worse. She'd sent him photos. No, not those kinds of photos, but ones that meant something. Her laughing in bed, her toasting a glass of wine, her at a restaurant I didn't recognize, places she never mentioned, expressions she never made around me anymore. It hit me harder than I expected, not because I saw something scandalous, but because I saw her, the version of her that used to laugh like that with me. And now she was giving that version to someone else. My hands started to shake. I clicked to close the window, but I couldn't. I needed to keep looking, needed to know how far it had gone. That's when I found the worst of it. In the call log, a pattern of messages from one specific night. Wednesday, 10 texts, then one call, then a FaceTime, the GPS ping, the Franklin Hotel. Again, not once, not twice, but 3 times in the last 3 weeks. She had a second life there, and I was the placeholder she returned to between performances. I sat there in the cafe for what felt like hours, not speaking to anyone, barely moving. Customers came and went. The barista changed shifts. The light outside dimmed. Still, I sat. Finally, I closed the laptop, grabbed my phone, typed out a text to Emily, then stopped. What was I going to say? Caught you? No, I didn't want confrontation. Not yet. I wanted truth. And I knew only one person could give me that. Derek Vaughn. I had his number. I copied it from the logs, stared at it, tried to picture his voice, his face, his posture when he picked up a phone that didn't belong to him. I was about to find out. I stepped outside the cafe. The air was cooling. The town was quiet. I took a breath, pressed call, and held the phone to my ear. It rang twice. Then, hello. A calm, casual voice. Confident. Young. Derek. I asked. Yeah. Who's this? Pause. I'm Noah Carter, I said. Emily's husband. Silence. Then just one word. Oh. That single oh told me everything. It wasn't surprise. Not really. It was the sound of someone realizing things just got complicated. I need to talk to you, I said. I'm not here to yell or threaten. I just want the truth. Derek didn't respond right away. I heard him exhale. A pause. Then, man, I didn't know she was still with someone. She is. She was. We live together. We're married. I make her coffee every morning. Silence. I thought you were separated, he said, his voice lower now. That's what she told me. She said you were living in the same house for legal reasons, but that it was over between you two. I almost laughed. She ever mention my name? No. That was honest, at least. And it made it worse. Emily hadn't just lied to me. She'd erased me. How long has it been going on? I asked. 3 months, Derek said. Maybe a little more. 3 months. It sounded short, but it landed like a gut punch. 3 months of text messages while I was setting the table for dinner. 3 months of hotel nights while I stayed up waiting. 3 months of calling me Air while calling him Babe. Did you really think she was single? I did, he said. Look, I'm not that guy. I don't mess with married women. If I'd known, I cut him off. It doesn't matter now. You know. He was quiet. Do you still talk to her? I asked. Not since yesterday, he said. She texted this morning. Wanted to meet up. I didn't answer. Why not? Because I started noticing things. Stories that didn't add up. Times she said she was alone, but I could hear someone in the background. She told me she loved quiet nights, but every time I called, she was whispering. He paused, then added, I got a weird feeling. And now, I get it. There was something real in his voice, not guilt, but clarity. Do you have messages? I asked. What kind? The kind that show me what she really thinks of me. He hesitated. I've got some screenshots. Stuff she said. Not gonna lie, they're rough. Send them. A few minutes later, the files arrived in my inbox. I opened them, sitting there on a bench outside the cafe, the evening wind brushing against my face. The messages were casual at first, then cruel. She still thinks I'm into him, Emily had written. He's sweet, but so boring. He's safe, predictable, comfortable. And finally, no is convenient. Until someone better comes along. I stared at the screen, not blinking, not breathing. It wasn't just the betrayal. It was the contempt. She didn't just fall out of love. She stopped respecting me. I scrolled. There were photos. One of them taken inside our kitchen, the same morning she told me she was working from home. Smiling into the camera, sending it to another man while I made breakfast 3 feet away. I didn't throw the phone. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just sat there. Something inside me had burned out. But in its place, something else began to glow. Resolve. I stood up, walked to my car, sat behind the wheel with the screen still glowing on the passenger seat. My own name mentioned like I was a footnote in someone else's story. Then another file arrived. Audio. From Derek. Subject line. You should hear this. I paused before opening it. My thumb hovered over the play button. I didn't want to know more, but I needed to. I slid in my earbuds. Hit play. Emily's voice. Laughter. Casual. Confident. Yeah, he has no clue, she was saying. Still thinks I'm working late. Probably eating leftovers again. A man chuckled. Derek, I guessed. He's like a golden retriever, she added. So loyal. So easy to fool. More laughter. Then the worst part. Sometimes I wonder why I married him. I guess it felt safe. But I stopped loving him a long time ago. The audio ended. I sat frozen in the driver's seat. My hands clenched around the wheel, the earbuds still in. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't sad. I was awake. There was no saving this. No fixing it. No salvaging dignity from a pile of mockery. Emily didn't want me. She wanted someone who wasn't me. And for the first time, I was okay with that. Because I was done. I didn't go home that night. Instead, I found a modest hotel off Main Street in Maple Creek. Nothing fancy, just clean sheets, a working lamp, and 4 walls that didn't carry her voice. I checked in under my own name. For the first time in years, it felt like I was claiming something that was mine. Emily kept texting. Where are you? We need to talk. You're being dramatic. It wasn't serious. I didn't respond. I didn't need more noise. I needed silence. And in that small hotel room with an old air conditioner humming in the background, I finally started to hear myself think. I reviewed everything, every sign I'd missed, every moment I'd excused. The late nights, the quiet laughs into her phone, the disinterest in my work, the way she pulled away when I touched her, like my hand was something cold. I used to think relationships were about compromise, sacrifice, sticking it out through the dry seasons. But this wasn't a dry season. This was a drought. I wasn't in a marriage anymore. I was in a performance. And I was the only one who hadn't read the new script. The next morning, I woke early, not out of routine, but because I didn't want to be in limbo anymore. I brewed the hotel room coffee, bitter, weak, but real. Then I drove home. Emily's car was in the driveway. Good. I walked in through the front door like I owned the place, because I did. She was on the couch, scrolling her phone, acting like nothing had happened. She looked up, expression flat. There you are, she said. Are we really going to do this? I didn't answer. Just walked past her into the kitchen, poured a glass of water, drank it slowly. Then I turned to her. Where were you Tuesday night? She blinked. What? You told me you were working late. There was a meeting. So tell me, what hotel was that meeting at? Her eyes narrowed. What are you trying to say? Nothing, I said. Just asking for the name. I don't have to explain myself to you, she snapped. I stayed calm. I'm not accusing you, I said, voice even. I'm just asking for honesty. For once. She stood, arms crossed. You went through my phone records? I went through our account, I said. You know, the one I pay for. Silence. A crack showed. Just for a second. Her jaw twitched. Her gaze broke. That was all I needed. I turned and walked upstairs. Into my studio. Closed the door. Sat at my desk with the laptop still open to the call logs. I stared at them for a long time, not because I needed more proof, but because it kept me grounded. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't overreacting. This was real. After nearly an hour, I went back downstairs. Emily was in the kitchen, pulling something from the fridge like we were just having an off morning. She didn't look up when I entered. I placed my phone on the dining table. The screen was on. The log of her messages with Derek Vaughn clearly displayed. She turned instinctively. Her eyes locked on the screen. Her face didn't crumble. It hardened. You're spying on me now? She asked, disgusted. I'm reviewing my life, I said quietly. She snorted. How noble of you. I didn't flinch. Who is Derek Vaughn? Nothing. Emily. She shrugged. What does it matter? It matters because we're married. She laughed, dry, bitter. Oh, please. Don't act like we've been some perfect couple. I'm not, I said. I'm just asking when you stopped pretending to care. She sat down, crossed her legs. Does it even matter anymore? It does to me. She sighed. Fine. A few months ago. Maybe longer. I stopped keeping track. Were you going to tell me? I figured you'd never find out, she said. You're always buried in your blueprints, your little passion projects. I didn't think you'd notice. And there it was. Not just betrayal, but contempt. You never respected what I do, I said. You never saw it. Because it's not real, she shot back. It's ideas. Drawings. Dreams. You don't live in the real world. No, I said. I lived in a world where I thought you loved me. She stood. Are you kicking me out? Yes. And where exactly am I supposed to go? Maybe Derek has room. That hit. Her eyes flashed, not with sadness, but panic, like someone realizing a game had gotten away from them. You're being insane, she muttered. No, I said. I'm finally being honest. She didn't argue again. Not really. She just stared at me like I'd violated some unspoken rule. Like I wasn't supposed to stand up for myself. That night, I slept on the couch. Not because she asked me to. Not because I was being dramatic. But because I didn't want to share space with someone who thought I was beneath her. The living room felt different now, colder, yes, but also honest. No pretending. No forced smiles. Just me, a worn-out pillow, and a strange sense of calm. I didn't sleep much. My mind kept looping through old conversations, times when Emily had dismissed my ideas, brushed off my excitement about a project, or changed the subject when I talked about anything that mattered to me. At some point during the night, I realized something painful. I'd been alone in this marriage long before I found those messages. At sunrise, I made coffee. The real kind. Ground beans, boiling water, ceramic mug. The kitchen was still, quiet. Emily hadn't come downstairs. Maybe she knew. Maybe she felt the shift too. At 9 a.m., I went up. She was sitting on the edge of the bed, arms wrapped around herself. Her face was puffy, but her posture was still proud. You have to leave today, I said. Calm. Measured. She looked up slowly. Are you serious? Yes. You can't just throw me out. This isn't throwing you out. This is setting you free. She scoffed. You don't get to make yourself the victim and the hero. I'm not the hero, I said. But I'm finally the one making a decision. She didn't argue. Just stood up and started packing. Loudly. Aggressively. Tossing clothes into a suitcase without folding. Like she wanted me to hear how angry she was. Like she needed to perform one last time. While she packed, I sat at the dining table downstairs and wrote a message. Not to her. To her parents. Linda and George Carter had smiled at me for years. Passed me the mashed potatoes while asking if I'd found real work yet. They called me a good man, while quietly doubting my worth. And I'd endured it. For her. Not anymore. The message was simple. I'd like to stop by and talk. It won't take long. Less than an hour later, I pulled into their driveway. Same house, same porch swing, same smell of overwatered roses. George answered the door. Looked surprised. Noah, can I have 5 minutes? He stepped aside. Linda was in the kitchen, wiping down a spotless counter. When she saw me, she gave that automatic smile, the one that never quite reached her eyes. Where's Emily? She asked. I didn't sit. I'll keep it quick, I said. Emily and I are separating. Linda's smile faltered. George frowned. What happened? I pulled out my phone, opened the folder, showed them the logs, the texts, the hotel address, the audio. I didn't say a word while they looked. Linda dropped the cloth she was holding. George just stared. That's not, Linda began. It is. They were quiet for a long moment. I'm not here to ask for advice, I said. And I'm not looking for pity. I just thought you deserved to know. You've made it clear for years that you didn't think I was good enough. Maybe you were right. Linda tried to speak, but I raised my hand. You don't have to say anything. I've said everything I needed to. I turned to leave. Noah, George said. We're sorry. I nodded, but didn't stop. Back in the car, my phone buzzed. Emily, what did you say to them? I didn't answer. Instead, I rolled down the window and let the morning air hit my face. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I had something to prove. I didn't feel like I was shrinking to fit someone else's expectations. I just felt free. Back at the house, Emily was waiting in the doorway with her suitcase. Her expression wasn't sad. It wasn't angry. It was insulted. Like I'd embarrassed her. Really? She snapped. You had to tell my parents? They deserve to know who they've been defending all these years. Her jaw clenched. You're ruining my life. I looked her in the eye. No, I said. I'm just finally standing up in mine. She didn't respond. Didn't apologize. Just walked past me, dragging the suitcase behind her. She slammed it into the trunk of her car, yanked the door open, and paused. You still think you're better than me, don't you? I shook my head. No, Emily. I think I'm better without you. She hesitated. For a second, I thought she might say something real, something human. But she didn't. She got in the car and drove away without looking back. I stood in the doorway for a while after Emily left, the wind tugging at the edge of my shirt. The house behind me was quiet. Still, I expected to feel something, grief, relief, maybe even guilt. But all I felt was space. Not emptiness. Space. I stepped back inside and closed the door. The air smelled different. Not better, not worse. Just mine. I walked through the room slowly, touched the corners of walls I'd painted. Ran my fingers over the worn dining table I'd refinished by hand. All those things she used to call cute projects. They were never just projects. They were parts of me. I ended up in the kitchen, cleaned out the fridge, took down the photos still hanging on the side. Our wedding day, a beach trip, her fake smile beside mine. I didn't cry. I didn't even linger. Some stories don't deserve to stay on the wall. That afternoon, I opened my laptop and checked my email. There was a new one from Derek Vaughn. Subject: she reached out to me. I opened it. She messaged me, said she had nowhere to go, wanted to know if we could talk things through. I told her no. Just figured you should know. No explanations. No soft landings. Just facts. I stared at the message, then closed it without replying. There was nothing more to say. Later that evening, I found myself back in my studio. I hadn't really stepped into it since before everything fell apart. The sketches were still spread out across the desk. The models still half finished. It felt like another version of me had been frozen in mid-creation. I took a breath, sat down, and started sorting through the papers. Not to escape, to rebuild. I sharpened a pencil, rolled out a fresh sheet of tracing paper, and began redrawing the entryway of a community library I'd been designing. Line by line, detail by detail. It felt good. Not because it was work, but because it was mine. Pure, untouched by judgment or condescension. I lost track of time. By the time I stopped, the sun had dipped below the horizon, casting the room in a soft blue shadow. I leaned back and looked at the lines I'd drawn. For the first time in weeks, I felt like I was making something again. Creating, breathing, living. My phone buzzed again. Emily. Another message. I never meant to hurt you. I didn't respond. I was just lost. We were broken already. Still nothing. Then, you didn't deserve that. I'm sorry. I stared at the words. They didn't hurt. Not anymore. Because I finally understood something. She wasn't apologizing for what she did. She was apologizing because I'd stopped listening. Because I'd stopped waiting. I turned the phone off and set it face down on the table. That night, I left the windows open. Let the cool breeze sweep through the house. I didn't turn on the TV. I didn't play music. I just sat with the silence. And for the first time, the silence didn't feel lonely. It felt like possibility. Before going to bed, I lit a candle in the kitchen. Not for ritual, just for light. I watched the flame flicker in the glass. I thought about everything I'd carried, everything I'd allowed, everything I'd buried just to keep the peace. I thought about the way Emily looked at me that last morning, like I was the villain in a story she'd written backwards. And I realized something else. It was never about whether I was enough. It was about her not being honest about what she wanted, and me not being honest about what I deserved. I blew out the candle and climbed into bed. Not the couch. The bed. The one I'd bought. The one I'd made space in. The one that was now mine again. I slept through the night. No tossing. No turning. No ghosts. Just rest. The next morning, sunlight spilled through the open blinds, cutting warm lines across the hardwood floor. I sat up slowly, blinking into the new day. No weight on my chest. No noise in my head. Just breath. Deep. Steady. The house was still. Not silent in the way it used to be. Awkward. Tense. Ready to crack. But calm. Like it had exhaled with me. I made coffee and stood at the window while it brewed. Across the street, a neighbor walked their dog. 2 kids zipped by on scooters. The world was still spinning. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was part of it. I spent the morning doing things that used to feel too small to matter. I changed a light bulb that had been flickering for weeks. Swept the patio. Deleted old voicemails. Some from her family, some I hadn't realized I'd been holding on to out of habit. Then I sat at my desk again and opened the plans for the Maple Creek Community Center redesign. This time, I didn't just stare at them. I started making notes. Sketching changes. Ideas came fast. Cleaner sightlines. More seating under the central skylight. I wasn't thinking about who might approve or fund it. I was thinking about what it could mean for the people who'd use it. What it could mean for me. Sometime in the afternoon, my phone buzzed. A message from Derek. She texted again. Wanted to meet. Said you kicked her out with nowhere to go. I didn't reply. A few minutes later, another one came. Just so you know, I told her no. Again. I'm not getting involved. I'm out. That made me pause. Not out of concern. Out of realization. Emily was scrambling. Not out of love or regret, but because the spotlight was gone. She'd always been good at performing. Smiles at the right moment. Tears when needed. Charm turned on like a switch. But now there was no audience. No fallback. And she was looking around, waiting for anyone to catch her. No one did. That evening, I walked into town, got dinner at a local diner, sat at the counter, ate slowly, nodded to the regulars who'd seen me there 100 times before but never really seen me. They asked how I was. I said, getting better. And I meant it. Back at home, I opened my email again. A final message from Derek had come in. Subject: I figured you'd want to know. Attached were a few more screenshots. Emily's last messages to him. I thought we had something. You said I made you feel alive. He's always been weak. He just doesn't show it. You and I were real. He's just bitter. I read them once, then again, and finally, I smiled. Not because they hurt, because they didn't. Because for the first time, I knew exactly who she was and who I wasn't anymore. I forwarded the email to a new folder I'd made the night before, closure. Then I signed out. I didn't need more evidence. Didn't need more closure. I already had it. In the quiet of my house. In the calm of my thoughts. In the plans I was finally excited to build again. That night, I stood in front of the bathroom mirror. Looked at myself the way you look at an old friend you haven't seen in years. Not perfect, but here. Still standing. Still trying. Still worth something. I turned off the light and walked down the hallway toward bed. And as I passed the closed door to the empty guest room, the one that had slowly become hers, I didn't feel a pang. I felt relief. Not because I hated her. Because I'd stopped needing her. She didn't break me. She just helped me find the cracks I needed to fix. On my own. The next day, I woke up before my alarm. No anxious dreams. No mental fog. Just morning light and the sense that something had shifted quietly, but completely. I opened the windows again. Let the air in. The smell of early summer, fresh-cut grass, and distant traffic. The soundtrack of a life that no longer felt like a performance. While the coffee brewed, I walked barefoot through the house. Not to check on anything. Just to be in it. It didn't feel haunted anymore. I spent the morning making updates to my designs. The community center plan had evolved overnight in my head. New features, better flow. I jotted down notes as they came. Not to prove anything. Not to be praised. Just because it made me feel alive. Around noon, my phone buzzed one last time. Emily, I'm staying with a friend. I won't bother you anymore. I just wanted to say I'm sorry. Truly. I hope you find someone who actually sees you. No tears. No blame. No drama. I read the messages. Then deleted them. And for the first time, it didn't feel like erasing something important. It felt like clearing space for something better. Later that afternoon, I drove into town, parked in front of the community office. Met with the planning committee, walked them through my ideas for the redesign, showed them how the new center could serve as more than just a space. It could be a place of healing, of connection. They listened, took notes, smiled. They saw it. They saw me. On the way home, I stopped by a bookstore, bought a novel I'd been meaning to read for years. On impulse, I grabbed a journal, too. I didn't know what I'd write in it. I just knew I needed to start recording things again on my terms. That evening, I cooked dinner. Real dinner. Not leftovers, not something frozen. Something that took time and smelled like intention. I ate at the table alone, but not lonely. Music played softly from the radio. Some old folk tune I hadn't heard since childhood. I poured a glass of wine, sat by the window, watched the sky turn gold. And then, I opened the journal. The first page was blank, of course. Clean. Untouched. I took the pen and wrote one line at the top. This is what starting over looks like. I closed the cover. Smiled. Because this time, the story was mine. No more shrinking. No more apologizing for taking up space. No more being someone's safe option or emotional stepping stone. No more bargaining for love. That night, I left the window cracked and let the breeze curl around the curtains. The world outside didn't feel threatening. It felt open. And I knew something for certain. Healing doesn't come in waves. It comes in moments. Quiet ones. Real ones. Ones you almost miss if you're not paying attention. Like an untouched journal. Like a clean kitchen. Like a deep breath after years of holding it in. I didn't know what tomorrow would look like. I didn't need to. I just knew I'd wake up and face it as myself. Noah Carter. Still dreaming. Still building. And finally free.